Regularly scheduled council meeting of February 3rd is now in session. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Clark?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mulvey?
Here.
Councilmember Brinkman? Here. Councilmember Cole? Here. Councilmember Ostermiller?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Present.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here.
Would you all rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you all have the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes? I'd like to suggest that we need an executive session before adjournment to talk about land acquisition.
Yes, sir.
Are there any objections? Assuming we get the votes. Then I think we need to add an item 5A, which is a recognition of service award. So seeing no objection, the agenda is approved as amended. Minutes for the January 13th council meeting.
Yeah, I got one.
I have a couple.
Tom?
On page 4, 136, Mulvey asked, what is the cost of the survey? And Councilman Taylor said he had no idea. And then either Suzanne or Pat Fitzgerald said it would be about $103,000.
Okay. Any other changes?
Is it two?
Peggy?
Whoops, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Page 3, line 83, should read 0% increase in 2009 based on what those outcomes might be if increases were deferred to the future.
Okay.
And page 5, the ayes and nays have the names reversed. The motion carried 4-3, but the people listed for aye should be nay and vice versa.
Actually, even that's not correct. On line 171, the nays are Clark, Trujillo, and Mulvey. And the ayes are everybody else.
Oops, sorry, I misread my own name. Thank you.
Any other corrections?
Not on that one, no, thank you.
Okay. Then the January 13th minutes are approved as amended. January 20th.
I have a few on, and these were not page numbered. I take it that was accident because the other ones were. So, but, so let me find this line 189. Councilmember Brinkman asked what, insert the word what. Um, 264, take out in near the end of the line the word are. You got two verbs in there. Two 228, excuse me, 328 through 31. It's actually at the end of line 331, comma, since we are contributing so much money, period. And then a new line, City Manager Wood said that is acceptable if council agrees, and no council members objected. I don't know if that means to imply we agreed, but we didn't ask for a council position, but no one did object at that point. 385-86. Let's see if I can read this right. On 385, near the end of that line, the performances, plural, given by a choral group we've heard sing here before, and by a fourth grade dramatic reading group from Aspen Academy, and so forth. And then I know you got one of these corrections from someone else, but in 388, it's Ginny Fraser, Ginny Fraser, and Alejandra, and the correct spelling I did give you in writing on that. And that's all. Thank you.
Any other corrections? And the minutes of January 20th are approved as corrected. Mr. Woods, do you have any new employees to introduce?
No, sir.
Okay, in that case, would you come down to the front, please? Tonight, we want to recognize Mr. Woods for 25 years of service for the city. And doing that, we have to ask ourselves, is it really 25 years? And the answer is...
I have to ask myself the same question.
The answer is, it depends. It depends on if they're contiguous or if you allow small gaps. But we're allowing small gaps, and we want to honor Jim for his contributions, his 25 years of service. We have a certificate and a pen, and I will try and pin it without drawing blood. Or maybe I'll just let you do it. That's a certificate of recognition for 25 years of service. The City of Littleton is pleased to recognize James Woods for significant contributions, dedication, and service to the organization and the community. Now, I have to say, I've only known Jim since 92, which is, 16, 17 of those years. And Jim was in the position that Phil had. And then I believe it was 99 when Andy retired, and we interviewed, I believe it was 5 candidates for a nationwide search. And the council at that time picked Jim out of the 5 candidates because we thought he had the best qualifications and the best fit with the city and would do the best job. And I think Jim has served the city very well for the 25 years. So I'm going to go down and hand him the certificate. If any of you all want to say anything while I'm going down, please feel free, or if any of the staff wants to.
I just have 2 questions for Jim. How long was that gap? And number 2, is the stone on the Phillips 66 building on Broadway really masonry?
I don't know. It's from Oklahoma. These are inside jokes for people that are watching, and they're saying, what are these people talking about?
I will say, Jim, that Joe and I happened to be elected to City Council in 1977 at the same time, and he left in 81 and I stayed to 85, and I think you came in 84. And I had very little communication and relationship with you at that time, but soon after leaving the council, I joined the South Suburban Board and spent 14 years and had a lot of opportunities to interact with you over those years. And then 2001 was elected back to this council and had a lot of interaction with you. I tell you, I think you're one of the outstanding city managers in this state, and I really appreciate the job that you do.
Thank you. And I came to Littleton from a very good community, Fort Collins. And for those of you who are familiar with that's a very, very nice community. But Littleton has been a great community for my wife, Christine, my daughter, Kimberly, who is within 3 months of hopefully finishing law school, and the whole team. And we've had a great team here. We've had great councils over the years, and if I look at my 25 years, all the things, when I came here, you know, the racetrack was just being redeveloped. The council that Jose was on had made the decision about the grade separations, which then led to light rail. And then all the work, in fact, for people who remember this, the channelization of the river was going on. And then all of the development, the greenway and the trails and all of that. So if you really look at that 25-year span, with the whole community pulling together, Littleton's had great leadership, and it's really the premier community in the metro area.
We've made lots of strides, and a lot of it has to do with the city and the city staff, and to make all that happen.
Well, but you folks who sit up there have had some tough moments too, where you had to flip the green light and say, and Doug will remember a couple of these, the vote on the courthouse, for example, which was, you may not remember that, but it was a 4-3. And
I don't remember it's 4-3, but I remember the vote. I remember the stuff that led up to it.
So, you know, some councils making some courageous decisions that I think have really kept Littleton very far ahead of the curve in terms of quality of life and desirability. So it's been fun.
And we expect another 25.
Charlie wants to file a minority report.
Sorry, the microphone just went out. We have no guest citizens and we have no scheduled public appearances, but now is a time for unscheduled public appearances. This is an opportunity for citizens to express opinions or ask questions regarding city services, council policies, or any other matter of concern, or to address us on the issues that are on the consent agenda. And I see Greg wants to come down.
It's fairly simple. It's just about the parking lease that you all have entered with us. The renewal date is May 15th, and it always seems to take a lot longer than the May 15th, the deadline. So I'm here early and just letting you know that we're not going to be raising anything. It's the exact same lease that is available to you. We just would like to have a letter of intent by February 28th, just so we know what to do and what we can count on. And with the economic times, we would like to just kind of predict the future as best as we can. And I know that the city's in a tight squeeze too. So, but as I said, we're not raising the rent or anything like that. It'll be exact same lease. We just would like to know what you want to do by the February 28th.
Okay.
Questions?
And you said it was due May when?
May 15th is when the lease is due and payment is to be received. Generally, we get it around June 15th.
Take credit card.
Yeah, we do. Okay.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, come on down, Bill.
My name's Bill Hopping, and I live in the city and am chairman of the Historic Preservation Board. I bring you an invitation tonight. Wilton, I don't know if you're awake up there, but this is an event that will be hosted by the Historic Preservation Board and also by Historic Littleton, Inc. It's called True Grit in the tradition of the Western atmosphere we have here. It's going to be held next Thursday, and then 2 weeks later again on a Thursday night at the Buck Center at 7:00 p.m. Littleton has a lot of neat historic assets, and I think everybody knows and likes and enjoys our Main Street, and it's probably one of the best preserved Western Main Streets in the United States. We also have residential historic district on Loudon Street. We have a list of merit neighborhood over at Arapahoe Hills, and we have numerous assets around the city that are historic in nature. Council and Planning Commission and Historic Preservation Board and all our citizens have looked at these assets a lot over the years, and we've taken the opportunity now to have some real open dialogue and have the public put their word into historic preservation and see what they think of these things and what they would like to see in terms of how these assets are managed down the road. So these forums are sequential. One follows the other. You can come to one or both or whichever you want. They will be professionally moderated by a company out of Boulder. Nori Winter has done historic type of work all over the country and community development work that helps people really identify what they have, what historic preservation is, and what it is not, because there are a lot of rumors around it and a lot of fears. We have nothing on the agenda other than an exchange of information here, and we want public dialogue so people really can tell us what they want in terms of historic preservation down the road, so that we can then all react to that and manage our city the way that the public wants it done. So come on out the 12th and the 26th, and we'll see you at the Buck Center at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Bill. And that's a great little,
Yes, it is.
it's almost on. It's a, or maybe not. It's a great little flyer.
Well, thanks.
Very clever.
You know, the city really pulled this together and did a great job on it. And we learned that there are something like 2,300 Western movie titles, which we didn't know before, but True Grit seemed to work well. So anyway, we hope to see all of you there.
Okay,
Thanks.
Sorry we didn't get that overhead to work tonight.
Anyone else? Jose?
I would like to speak.
Sure.
Okay, I have to get down on.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Council. Jose Trujillo, President of the Littleton Cemetery Association. Not too long ago, our board met, and we were going to approach the city to see whether or not we could place a fence at the south entrance of our cemetery. We now have the property to the south. We have 7 acres there. And one of the problems we're having is that people will drive down Ridge Road now in the evening, and they'll back up and unload their trash sometimes. So we have that problem of keeping that maintained. But another problem we look at now is the fact that in light of what has happened with the railroad, basically the only place that those people can unload all that heavy equipment has been at the cemetery property. And so we've got to take a look at that and see what is going to happen, because we still have that road there. However, we've had 2 wrecks so far, and if there's been one and then there's 2, there's a possibility there'll always be another one. So we're going to have to take a look and see whether or not there'll be a way for us to acquire that street and leave it as a dead end right at our office, with the street remaining within the city boundaries. And if there is any problem with the railroad and they need to get in there, they can do that. So I'm not quite sure at this time. We've been waiting for the development up on the east end of that to occur, so we can see what is going to happen with the curb and gutter, the streets, et cetera, that's going to come along. Then we would take it from our property on down in the same manner. But nothing's happened up there to this point in time. I've tried to contact those people, but they seem to say, well, we're just not moving on it. So I don't know if you have any questions about that with the railroad problem.
So you're looking to close the street basically right past the entrance to that office building?
Yeah, right next to it. We would like to place a fence across there with a gate, and also a small gate that you can just walk through. Basically, we're going to be looking to keep vehicles from getting down in there and unloading their trash.
Well, you know, I think that we're all hoping that the railroad derailments and the need to take a heavy equipment to the cemetery is a dead issue.
Well, I hope so.
But I don't know that it will be.
Dead issue, yeah. So, anyway, we do have a few problems up at the cemetery that we're dealing with right now. And one is, if you've ever been up there, and through the years, you would think that people would come in and ask about, one of our great mayors or one of our great statesmen or one of the great people of the city, but the main focus is always on Alfred Packer, our cannibal. And we had just learned not too long ago, it's been kind of a rumor that he was beheaded when he was buried. Ripley's, believe it or not, claims that they have authenticity as to his head. It's in a shrunken form, and it has now been taken from the Hurricane Katrina facility, and it's now placed in San Antonio. So I made a call down to my friend down there to see whether or not, if there in fact was a shrunken head of Alfred Packer there. And they claim to have his head, and so we are working with the Littleton Museum to see whether or not this is really true, because we don't have any way of knowing other than to take him up, look around, see what's happening. So we're in the middle of that right now, and if and when we have to disinter him, will probably be a big deal around town. So that's one of the problems we have, and another is that we may be drilling. We have the possibility of, we've went through the water courts. Mr. Simon Miller some years ago came to the cemetery and said, if you're going to want to drill a well in the future, you're going to have to acquire rights from all the people around there, Apple Community College, and there's a lot of places, which he went ahead and did all this work for us. We do have a permit that's in perpetuity that we can use, and we would like, once we get over to the south side, is possibly put in a well on that side to service the grass on the south side of Ridge Road. So that's where we're at right now, and just want to give you an update on it. Any questions?
Question for Jose?
You're welcome to come up there. We have plots with a view left, and we have a very quiet community. We've done away with conjugal visits. They're very noisy. So if you want to come up, and we still have plenty of space left at the cemetery. So we're looking at about 35 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to follow that?
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing none, then we're on to our consent agenda. A consent agenda are items that can be adopted by simple motions. They are presumably non-controversial. Any council person can remove any item if they want. And the first item is a resolution specifying where notices of public meetings are to be posted. If you could read that, please, by title.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, specifying the location where notices of public meetings are to be posted.
I'm going to pull that one.
Okay. 7A is pulled. 7B is a resolution to transfer funds from the Sophie Bramley Sylvan Trust Fund into the library expenditure account. If you could read that by title, please.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, authorizing the transfer of funds from the Sophie Bramley Sylvan Trust Fund into the library expenditure account.
Sophie Bramley Sylvan died in 2003 and left about $400,000 to the library. The library has some remaining funds in there and is asking to transfer $10,000 from that trust fund to purchase books on CD and large print materials for the collection, specifically aimed for the visually impaired. Next item is 7C, which is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Transportation District for the shopping carts. Would you read that by title, please?
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Littleton and the Regional Transportation District, RTD, for the funding and operation of the city's shopping cart transportation service.
RTD has been contributing money annually since 1992 to the operation of our shopping cart. That's a vehicle that travels around a prescribed route, delivering people to the grocery stores so that they can do their shopping. The annual contribution for 2009 is $26,000, a little over that. This resolution would authorize accepting the funding and implement intergovernmental agreements. Can I have a resolution, please? May I have a resolution for the consent agenda?
I'll move for the adoption of consent agenda items B and C.
Second.
Any discussion? Council ready to vote?
Vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Okay, that takes us to item 7A, which was pulled. Peggy?
Yes, I'm not quite sure. Should I make a motion first or tell you my concern?
Why don't you tell us your concern, and then you can make a motion.
Okay.
To amend it.
Currently, we require notices to be posted here at the city center, as well as at the library and online. And I would like this motion, I would like us to say that except for emergencies, that we also post at the library and online. And the exception, I think, required, because if we have a true emergency, we may not be able to post online because of, lack of access, and or might not be able to get it over to the library. So I wanted to make sure that we at least post here, but require non-emergency meeting posting at the other two, as we currently do.
Okay, why don't you make your amendment, and we'll see if it gets a second and discussion.
So I'm a little confused, given we have a whole resolution. So
Good point. Why don't you,
I was thinking that possibly I could amend the proposed resolution in substance without the specificity and let our attorney take care of it.
well, let's get a motion on the floor for the resolution as it is, and then deal with the
An amendment, okay.
Yes. So somebody want to make a motion for the, Jim?
Yeah, I'll move the adoption of the resolution of the posting notices.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the posting of the resolution designating the front door of the Littleton Center or the indoor wall area adjacent thereto as a location for posting of notices of public hearings, that the resolution be approved by the council president, be authorized to affix his signature thereto. Now,
Then I would like to amend the motion so that the part would be, instead of be approved, be amended to include.
hang on. Before you do that, let's ask a question. For emergency meetings, don't we simply have to notify the press at the same time that we notify the council?
Right, an emergency meeting, you don't have to do the 24-hour posting at all. And so you would have an emergency meeting, and there might be some question as to whether you had to ratify your action in a later meeting. But for the meeting itself, there's
Okay.
no posting.
So if
Requirement.
the intent was to get this to notification to the broader area for anything other than emergency meetings, we really don't have to do anything for emergency meetings, right? Because emergency meetings aren't covered by this.
They aren't, but I think typically we would go ahead and post at the time we knew of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We just wouldn't comply with the 24 hours necessarily.
Okay.
So where we would post is dependent on where we designate in this document.
Okay.
Okay, so I could just tweak the one little piece here. So let me try this.
Okay.
I'd like to amend the motion to read, I move that the resolution designating the front door of the Littleton Center or the indoor wall adjacent thereto and the library and online as the city website as the locations for the posting of notices of public meetings, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, it's been moved to amend the motion to add the library and on the city website as additional posting locations. Is there a second? And I'll actually second that. Discussion. How difficult is it to send the notice down the library and post it, get it posted?
Well, we already do that under the council rules of procedure, which is, I think, what Councilmember Cole was referring to. And so we typically, don't we, Wendy, post at the library, and we post online. The issue, and I mean, Wendy and I did talk about that discrepancy. This is a legal requirement that we state where our posting is going to be, and if we don't post here, then it could be considered an illegal meeting. So we did what was legally required, which was set one posting place. If you want to set more, we don't have a problem with that. We just didn't want to go beyond what the legal requirement was when we set the posting location. So it's not a problem to do it. It's just that if we designate it, then we have to do it.
Jim?
And that's why I'm going to vote no on this amendment. I think that we are already doing the things that Peggy's asking to be done, and I see no reason to put into our official resolution of our posting any more than what is required by state law.
Further discussion? Council ready to vote, and this is on the amendment to add 2 additional posting places to the resolution that complies with the state open meetings law, and those 2 additional places are the library and on the city's website.
The vote is 2 in favor with Councilman Taylor, Councilman Mulvey, Councilman Ostermiller, Councilwoman Brinkman, and Councilman Trujillo voting no. The amendment is defeated.
Okay, now we're back to the main motion, which is a resolution designating the front door of the Littleton Center or the indoor wall area adjacent thereto as a location for posting notices. Any discussion on the main motion? Council ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Okay.
So can I ask for clarification? So we continue to post online under what legal requirement or non-legal or whatever? Is this just a gentleman's agreement that we'll continue to post online?
And it's in the council rules and procedures, isn't it? And so pursuant to your rules, we will continue to do that.
Okay, I just was curious whether or not what we just did overrides what our procedures are otherwise.
No, we'll continue to do it. It's just the resolution won't be consistent
Okay.
with that practice.
Okay, this brings us to item 8A, which is an ordinance on second reading establishing sanitary sewer utility charges for 2009. Would you read that by title, please? Both the ordinance and the resolution.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending provisions of the city code regarding wastewater fees, and a resolution of the City of Littleton, Colorado sewer utility enterprise regarding wastewater service fees and charges.
Council, Charlie Bloston, the city's Director of Public Services, and Doug Farman, our city finance director, will present this item to you tonight.
Good evening, Council, and you get a tag team match for this item. On January 13th of this year, you had a study session to discuss sewer service charges. At that point, you directed staff to increase the rates by 6% for all users. For the benefit of those who may be watching on television or in the audience, a sewer bill for inside city customers this year, 2008, was $197.73. In 2009, it is proposed that that fee be $209.59, the increase of 6%. For customers these are single-family residential customers who live outside the city limits of Littleton and they're in the sewer districts. Last year, you paid $180.07. Now you will pay $190.87. As you can see from the council communication, all rates have been increased 6%. Last Thursday afternoon, we met with members of the various sanitation districts. Of the 8 districts we serve, 7 of them were represented. They all were in agreement with the 6% increase and felt that it was appropriate. They recommend also that the council approve this change in sewer service charges. As you know, we do bill once a year. The bills go out in June with payment due by about mid-August, and we will be looking at other billing methods possible probably in 2010 implementation. If you have any questions, the one thing I don't do is the accounting.
I think you should point out for the viewers at home, for Littleton citizens, that the amount that you quoted is actually a little less than what the bill would be because the storm drainage charges are also added on.
Right. When you get the bill, there's a $24 fee for storm drainage added on to all city customers only. We bill every property in Littleton $24 a year for single family, and it goes up from there. And those rates, when you get that bill in June, those rates have not changed in 22 years.
Questions for staff? John?
Yeah, Charlie, would you take a minute and explain why inside the city rates are higher than outside the city rates and higher than inside city with a sanitation district?
Certainly. The inside city rates also include a fee for the collection system cost. The city of Littleton owns its own sanitary sewer collection pipes. Those are the ones in the street that collect the sewage and then transport to a main interceptor that starts at Bellevue Avenue and goes to the sewer plant in Englewood. So the $197 this year, the $209 for, or last year, the $209 for this year reflects the cost of that collection system apportioned to every property in Littleton that is connected to our sewer system. An example is Councilman Taylor's residence is not part of the city sewer system. You actually are serviced through Englewood. So the difference between the $209 and that we charge this year and the $190.87 is the cost of the collection system. And the districts charge their customers a separate cost for collection service. We don't bill the districts for that purpose. Ken Carroll Ranch District and Roxborough District all bill their customers themselves. We just bill directly to the district. The other 6 districts, we bill each individual customer. So we get, actually, when the city of Littleton customers, you will see 3, you won't see it, but there are 3 items on your bill: treatment, collection, and storm drainage. If you live in the districts, and I also should include Councilmember Brinkman is in one of the districts, and you're in the city limits, and if you look on our chart, you actually are charged $150 or $159.06. Those 3 costs combined will take the $209 plus the $24 to get your total bill.
Just as a small point of clarification, the difference between the 209 and the 190 no longer reflects entirely the amount that we collect for the collection system cost. That was a difference between the inside city and outside city in 2007. The difference, some of that is collection system cost, but some of that represents a differential between inside city and outside city.
Let me really state it correctly. The 209 is city, and actually the 159.06, if you subtract that number from the 209, that's the number it costs a city resident for the collection system.
Yes.
The 190 is the 20% differential that you applied in 2008.
Yes, thank you. Any further questions for staff? All right, this is a public hearing. There's one name on the roster, Diane Schimmel. You want to come down and talk? No. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, no comments. Anyone else want to come down and speak to us for or against the ordinance?
Marty.
Mr. Brezak.
Council members, Marty Brezak, I live in District 4. What I didn't hear was from Charlie was the increase in the collection fee for this year. Is it 6%? So not only our collection fee got a 6% hike, but our treatment fee got a 6% hike. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be the difference between the 150 on 2008 and the 159 for 2009.
I just didn't hear that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, let me state it to the microphone there. Yeah, you can't hear from back up there if you're watching from television. The total amount was increased 6%. And since we charged $197 last year, which included the collection fee, that whole amount was increased by 6%. So in reality, each part of that $197 was increased 6%, the collection fee part and the treatment part.
And it looks like we're going to come fairly close to covering the collection system costs in 2009 and 2008. We actually over-collected for collection system costs in 2005, 6, and 7. So once we get the actuals in, we may have to adjust the collection system cost up or down depending on what it takes to cover the costs for that. Any further questions?
I would just make a statement because Charlie identified that my house and all my neighbors and a whole bunch of the area up there is served by Inglewood. I will tell you that my sewer charges are a lot higher than what you have down here for Littleton.
Good. All right. Anything else? Council ready for a motion? And both, we have to approve both the ordinance and the resolution.
I'll make a motion. I move that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance adopting the 2009 sewer utility charges and the resolution of City of Littleton, Colorado Sewer Utility Enterprise be approved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve both the ordinance adopting the 2009 sewer utility charges and the resolution also adopting those charges for the enterprise that's associated with the sewer plant. Yes, ma'am. Jose. Any discussion? Council ready to vote?
Vote is 7 in favor. The ordinance is approved and the resolution.
Yeah, that takes us to item 9A, which is an agreement with South Denver Chamber of Commerce for Economic Development Services, and I believe that's a resolution also.
Now, that's a simple motion, Mayor.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is. So,
Chris Gibbons, our Director of Business and Industry Affairs here tonight. This is a contract, and John Brackney, President of the Chamber, is also here. Chris, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
No, it's pretty straightforward, Council.
Come on down and talk into the mic.
It's straightforward. This is actually the 22nd year that we have proposed signing a contract with the Chamber, and as you can see in the memo, the amount has varied over the years, but we have done it every year. We have it budgeted in our budget, and John and Bert Saya, who's back over here, are here if you have questions from the Chamber, so I'd be happy to answer questions also.
Council, any questions for staff?
I worry about that 2008 there in line 2. Is that correct?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
It says 2008 in line 2 there.
Yeah, I apologize. Peggy caught me before the meeting. I will correct that and get a revised copy so that the formal copy that's with the city clerk is revised to say it's 2009.
Thank you.
Questions? Motion?
I move the agreement for economic development services with the South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce be approved, payment for such services be authorized, and the council president be authorized to affix his signature thereto.
Second. John, got the second. Discussion? Council ready to vote?
Vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Okay, that brings us to...
Mr. Mayor, before
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gibbons leaves, could I request that if we have such an item for 2010, that it be submitted for approval before the end of 2009? This one is like delayed, right? Because this goes through December 31. So if we have one for next year, can it be submitted for approval in December?
I suppose so.
Well, excuse me, let me ask a clarification here. This council approves this money as part of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular reason that you want to approve the agreement in December?
Well,
Because the money will be, if you've read it, it's paid in one lump sum. So Chris usually brings it in February. The chamber budgets it, and it's paid in one check.
how could we get it in January?
If,
I mean, if we
for
have an
some reason
agreement
you think
for-
that's important,
If there's
yes,
a
ma'am.
performance issue, you know, of actions, whatever, it seems to me we should agree to it before they do any
We
work
can
on our
certainly
behalf.
write it on our calendar for next year and bring it in January. That's very easy to do.
Yeah,
Actually, if there were a concern, I would think it'd be from the chamber that might do 2 or 3 months' worth of work, being afraid that we wouldn't approve their money.
Well, I appreciate this is.
They're very trusting souls over there.
Well, and I appreciate they work hard and all that. We seem to frequently get things coming before us that are theoretically already occurring. And I'd like to get
I would put the emphasis on theoretically on this one, but we're certainly
but
happy.
they're not really working for
No,
us.
ma'am. I'm saying that because of the types of services that they provide over the year, they pretty much, once councils approve this in the budget, they pretty much assume that councils.
They trust them.
Yes, ma'am, they have for 22 years, but that's not to say it might not change, but.
And actually, once it's approved in the budget, once the budget is formally approved, the money is authorized to be expended without any further motions. But this is a intergovernmental agreement not intergovernmental agreement, but a contract between us and them.
Yes, sir.
All right, item 10A, which is the discussion of the boards and commission interviews. And I asked this to be included on the agenda mainly because I was concerned that we decide which questions we wanted to ask, or if we wanted to decide which questions we wanted to ask beforehand. And I'll remind council that last year we hammered out a series of questions that we then sent to all the applicants, which I thought was a good thing to do. So this is up. Does council want to keep the same questions and send the questions to the applicants?
I think it's a good idea. Just what we had last year worked out pretty well. And we asked about Channel 8.
Yes. So the motion is to approve the questions as submitted and send them to the applicants in advance. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the questions submitted to us on the memo and send them to the applicants. Any discussion?
I do have one thing. The tree committee's not on here.
Tree committee questions? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we had 1 or 2 boards that we didn't have specific questions for. And the tree board was one of them.
I can do a couple questions and send them to you. That would be great. That'd be okay. I can't come up with them right now.
Okay.
I thought you came up with some last year, so if you don't have them handy, I might be able to fish out what you.
I can come up with a couple.
Okay.
What I would suggest is that we approve this set tonight, send it out to the people that have applied for these boards, and then next Tuesday, you come with the questions for the tree committee, and then we'll send those out.
Okay.
Is that all right with everybody? Okay. Further discussion on the motion? Jose?
Question here. I received a letter from somebody who wanted to be nominated for some of the Fine Arts Committee, the Museum Board, the Historical Preservation Board. And I was just wondering if anybody else got it.
I did.
Have those names been submitted?
We all did. Yeah, I think she filled out an application, but then followed it up with a letter to each of us.
Okay. All right.
Could you give us the name, Councilman?
It's Denise Sim, S-E-N-M.
Yes, sir, she did
She-
submit an application. She's on the applicant roster.
Okay.
Great. Okay, the motion is to approve the questions that are on the memo and send those out to the applicants with the understanding that we will get tree board questions next Tuesday. Council ready to vote?
Vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Okay, that brings us to comments. Mr. City Manager, Mr.
There
25
was-
years.
We
There was
didn't,
an
we didn't
Oh,
finish.
I'm sorry.
Then I move that we have 10-minute interview periods as last year, starting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to have 10-minute long interview slots as in last year. Discussion?
Are the all 40 applications all new people, or are we talking about people that are already on boards and said they wanted to renew?
The people who requested to be reappointed did not submit applications this year. We just have a list. The 47 applications that I have are all new people.
But we don't really have to interview the people that are already on board.
That's what I was instructed to do, that if they were already on the board but requesting to be reappointed, that we didn't need to interview them.
I think that's great. I like that.
Yeah, we covered that a couple meetings ago, sometime in the near past. All right, the motion is to have 10-minute interview slots. Discussion, Jim?
I just want to ask, if we do 10 minutes, we need 3 nights?
What'd you say?
Do we need 3 nights if we're doing 10-minute? Because some of these are, we've got undoubtedly,
Well, we
I have a little difficulty trying to figure out this time schedule here.
Well, it looks like if she's got 47 to take us to the third night up to 8 o'clock.
Well, but some of these are 15-minute gaps, and then some,
These look like 10-minute gaps.
Councilmember Taylor, I used the schedule that they used last year, and Rochelle, the deputy clerk, the city deputy clerk, put a 5 minutes, she slipped 5 minutes in there somewhere so that the council didn't go over, and so that there was a little bit of a gap in there in some places, but each one of the interviews is only 10 minutes long.
So it's float.
Yeah, like at each hour, we get an extra 5 minutes.
Yes.
But no break.
For a break.
10 every hour.
Okay. Further questions or discussions? Okay, the motion is to have 10-minute interview slots
Starting at 6 p.m.
starting at 6 p.m.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Okay.
Just one more question.
All right.
Are we doing as we did last year? If someone cannot attend an interview on one of these 3 nights, then we will not be interviewing them?
Is that a motion? Been moved to not have an alternate day to confine the interviews to the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of February.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, confine the interviews to the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of February with no alternate day. Discussion. Council ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Wendy? Is that everything? Okay. Sorry, I was trying to move too fast. Now, reports. Mr. 25-year veteran city manager.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Ms. City Attorney.
I just wanted to advise council that at the next regular meeting, I'll be bringing a group of ordinances for first reading. One is initiated by me or my office that has to do with decriminalizing traffic infractions. There are also a number of ordinances that we've been requested to draft by the police department 3 of them will be new additions to the criminal code, including sale of alcohol to a minor, possession of drug paraphernalia, and criminal menacing. And then there's another group of ordinances that will be amended to bring them in line with current state statutes. So that will probably appear as a bulk in your packets next time.
Okay. Peggy.
First, I want to congratulate everybody who was involved in the production of our first Littleton ! Show that viewers may have been watching before we started here, and I caught some of before this started. Looks really super to me, what I saw. So, second, I want to thank all the citizens who do so much volunteering for us, whether it's formal volunteering at the museum and library, both of which, I don't know about the museum, but the library definitely would like some more volunteers. So if you're out there and have 3 hours a week for about 3 months, they would love to have you contact them to do a whole range of things. You get some choice. And other volunteers who are not formally ever recognized, people who pick up trash as they're going for walks. I saw a couple people today doing that. Thought that was wonderful. People who see people driving recklessly and report them, and then those people wind up in, the people they report wind up at municipal court and get taken care of appropriately. Because some of the people have to then be witnesses to say they saw this reckless driving. And saw one yesterday morning. He must have spent most of his morning over at municipal court so he could be a witness. But took a teenager off the streets who had 5 tickets last year, and he's still just 17. Anyway, so I appreciate citizens who do that. Then I have a request. I was personally a little embarrassed when we met with the Planning Commission last week and nobody knew how to run the document camera in the community room, so viewers and people in the audience could not see the map of the central area that was being discussed. And if there's somebody on council and somebody on city staff who regularly attend meetings in the community room, I think it'd be great to have one of us trained, so when we occasionally need to use the document camera, we can use it. And if it's too challenging, I guess we'll have to dispense with it. But I regretted we couldn't put that map up last week.
I nominate John for the training.
Second.
And I will volunteer to go through the training course also. So
sure
that gives you at least 2.
I'm sure we can find somebody on staff.
I would have been there, except I had an alley. So I'm
That's-
sorry about that, but it is good job security for me.
No, and
That's okay.
my comment was not fault finding, because people are going to get sick, or you do have excitement with your knee and so forth. So it's just, we don't want you to come and get everybody sick with whatever you've got or whatever. So,
Well, Kelly can show Phil and me how to do it, and then we'll be covered.
will you?
Sure.
Okay. So that'll be more to add to your next 25-year celebration?
Start of a new chapter.
Thank you.
Turn the page.
In the technological age. Anything else? Jim?
No, thank you.
At our day-long workshop last week, we came forth with 2 choices for solving the police needs. A standalone building on Mineral Avenue and the expansion of this building. My preference, of course, is the expansion of this building to the east, but that's not the direction that we gave the staff to pursue. I think what we gave the staff was to have an analysis done of this building that would be for its best utilization. Since last Friday, I've put more thought into that request. And I think that we probably need to not rule out relocating the firehouse and utilize that space to meet the city's needs. As long as we've got somebody coming in here going to analyze this building, let's not rule out part of the building. And I recognize the fact that a specific motion was made similar to those lines last Friday, and it did not go. But I'd like to ask council to reconsider and allow the people who are doing this analysis to include all the building and all the possibilities that might help us meet the needs for this staff. That's thing one. Thing two is, speaking of analysis, I believe we need to have two types of analysis done for the Mineral Avenue building. One by a professional engineering group who's going to look at all of the engineering aspects of that building, and secondly, a very thorough analysis by our staff. If we're serious about moving forward, I think we need to have both of those things done for that building.
Do you want to make that as a motion or a statement? Or, on the mineral building, I would suggest that we wait until we get a response back from the offer, unless you want to do that before the offer. But my understanding is the offer's coming up pretty close.
And let me ask Suzanne, if the offer goes out quickly and is accepted, do we have enough time to contract to have all of this analysis both by our staff and by a professional, maybe engineering firm to analyze that building?
Well, it would be standard to have about a 6-month or maybe even 12-month window on a purchase like that while you did that analysis and put your zoning in place. We're still not sure about that issue. So there are a lot of factors that are sort of up in the air, and on a purchase like that, I think we'd be looking at a decent amount of time to go through that process. Now, that being said, once we put the offer down, there will have to be some sort of good faith deposit, and if we walk away for some reason that's not an issue on the seller's side, then we may lose that money. But
okay, thank you. Then I guess a motion I would make would be that the analysis that is going to be done about space utilization in this building consider all the building, including the firehouse.
Second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that any analysis on space utilization in this building include Fire Station 11 and the possible movement of Fire Station 11. Discussion.
I would suggest if that's going to happen, then there needs to be an analysis of cost to relocate them also that needs to be considered in whatever, whatever the option of staying comes back for this building. So that's an additional cost.
I would think anybody who's doing an analysis would have to come forth with that. I would expect that to happen.
Further discussion.
I'd like to postpone this motion to the next meeting so that it can be listed on a formal agenda in case a citizen might happen to want to speak to it during unscheduled citizen appearance.
I'm getting my calendar out.
I thought we were getting Roberts.
Pardon?
I thought you were going for Roberts.
Not yet, but it's getting close. All right, it's been moved to postpone the motion for analysis of the space utilization study to February 10th. Is there a second for the
17?
postponement?
Our next regular meeting?
Did you mean the 17th?
Well, citizens can't speak at our study sessions.
Okay, it's been moved to postpone the motion for analysis of space utilization to include Fire Station 11 to February 17th. Is there a second for the postponement motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Discussion is limited to the postponement date on the postponement motion. Council ready to vote? This is the motion to postpone the motion to analyze.
The vote is 4 in favor with Councilman Mulvey, Councilman Clark, and Councilman Trio voting no. The motion's approved.
Okay, the motion to analyze space utilization include Fire Station 11 in any analysis of space utilization needs for the city center has been postponed to February 17th. Could you make sure that that goes on the agenda for that time, please?
That's all.
Anything else?
Nope.
Tom? Anything?
It's okay with me.
Any comments?
Report.
Report?
Ready to vote.
Pardon?
I'm ready to vote.
Oh, we already did.
Oh,
Do you have any council comments?
oh no.
Oh, John?
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on Jim's point. I think before, I don't know where in the process we are, but I think before we make any kind of offer or proceed any further on the building on Mineral, we have some idea of what the total cost is going to be. Not just to acquire, but to remodel, to improve the security of that building and everything that will be required, including relocation of, I think we also need to determine who's moving there. If we happen to acquire that building, who is moving there and what's the cost? Because I think it's a total departure from the way the city has been since this building was built, of having all of our staff in one area, all of our administrative staff in one area, and all of the services provided out of one building. So I think that needs to be part of the analysis before we proceed forward, and that is in the form of a motion.
Could you restate the motion for me, please?
Before we proceed any further on any kind of offer or acquisition of the building on Mineral, we have some sort of plan that details the total cost of acquiring that building, including what it would cost to move various departments into that building, a plan on who is going to move into it.
Hang on. Are you getting this that fast? Okay, go on then.
And what the total cost of finishing that building to fit our needs.
Okay, it's been moved to delay making an offer on the Mineral Street building until we have a study that delineates
the cost, the building, the finishing costs, the relocation costs, and a plan of who is moving there. And,
Councilman, I assume you're talking about a space utilization plan for the entire 68,000.
or whatever's going in there,
Okay,
and a cost of operating that building.
entire space utilization plan. Okay.
Okay, it's been moved to delay making an offer on the Mineral Street building until we have a study that determines the cost for finishing, the cost for relocation, who is going into the building, and what else?
Cost of operation.
Cost of operation. Is there a second?
I'm going to second it because I want to make a comment.
Okay. Been moved and seconded that we have the study that was basically just delineated.
I think we all recognize the fact that that building is larger than this building, and you add what the police needs study was done, add that to the size of this building, and that building on Mineral is still larger than this building, that maybe we need to look at, if we acquire that building, moving all of City Hall to there, because it gives more space than what we've got here.
Further discussion?
Well, I would suggest that at our workshop, the motion that was made and voted on was to proceed with making an offer based on the appraised value. And I think that we need to go ahead and proceed with that. I think that John's motion is completely contrary to that motion. That is what's on the table. That's, I'm not in agreement with going ahead and totally turning that over and doing a study. We haven't budgeted for that. All of that is, I think, going to be part of the procedure moving forward. But that was the council's direction.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I just wonder what we're going to do if that offer is accepted. We're taking property off the tax rolls, and we have no idea what we're going to do with it. There's some houses up in Aspen that are selling for about half of their original cost. Maybe we should buy one of those, too. We have as much idea what we'll do with that as we do with this building.
Further discussion?
I'd like to say that option 6 is very viable, or 5 is very viable alternative, because at the present time we need for the police department evidence storage, which is now required by the federal government, I believe, to be held on to until the day that person dies in prison or is executed, or if he gets out. So that's been one of our big topics. Automobile storage of evidence. We have just a whole lot of reasons that I'm fairly in favor of is to provide everything under one unit instead of spreading Littleton all over. One of our options was to go to Inglewood. Other options, and all the options that we did have that were located in this facility here, it took up a lot of our parking spaces. And so if we were to build here, we still got another problem, parking. We have a 67,000 square building, and how many parking spaces did we talk about up there approximately?
222.
222 spaces to park there. So FEMA has used that building on occasion. They lease it from us, or have leased it from them during their tenure here in Littleton. So I see now that there's a lot of counties that for South Metro Fire Department, for instance, bought a big facility, and they've leased not part of theirs out to the county. The counties need space, and FBI and Colorado Bureau of Investigation. So there's always a lot of alternatives to put in there, and I just think it would be a good idea to go ahead and look into this.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
Jim, based on what John's motion says, how long would it take to do that?
I don't know. We'd have to sit down and put together a scope of work. I think it would take probably some fairly extensive. There are professional space planners. Given if we're talking about really space planning for the majority of the building, some of those take Phil, as much as a year. Where's Phil? Yeah. We've talked about doing, but so space planning of that magnitude would probably take 9 months to a year to really pull together all the space planning and visit with all the departments and go through. It's a very comprehensive process, and then to look at what the finishes were going to be, functionality, operating cost, as Councilman Ostermuller said. So that's a pretty significant undertaking.
And I know that at least Debbie, I don't know who else, and several staff have walked through that building and so forth. I have no idea what it looks like inside. when we discussed this on Friday, at least one of the suggestions was that very little be done initially to make some changes, something about the restrooms and so forth. But it seems to me we're sort of jumping the gun to ask for the space plan unless we talk about this more in terms of what we'd want to happen there. So it seemed to me this motion, in a sense, contradicts the motion that we made on Friday to see if this were a building that was so at such a value that we'd be sort of foolish to not put a bid on it.
Well, I think I'm just listening to the seven of you, or as I was at the workshop, but I think that's the difference in philosophy. The members of the council, Councilman Trujillo and on down, who supported this said for that price, who knows what kind of opportunities might be down there. I think Councilman Ostermiller is voicing and Mr. Taylor voicing a different opinion that you need to have much more of a firm idea of how you're going to use the building. So I think there are two very sort of different points of view, and that's up for council, obviously, to determine which one you think's
But given the timeline, you're saying this, in a sense, negates what we passed on Friday.
I think Councilman Ostermiller is asking you to reconsider that. He's bringing up some points, but that's certainly the way I would read into it.
Okay.
The way I heard the motion on Friday, because this would be really coming back with really a functional space plan. We've had some rough idea of the police taking the bottom floor, but if we were going to program space for most of that building, or IT and then functionality, who's going to move down there, what's going to be the operational protocols with this building, that's a fairly involved process.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Well, I think the motion that was made Friday was approved and is still effective and takes priority over this, and we should live with it and go with it. I think it's a great idea on looking into that building.
Well, for a little bit of background for some of the people that are watching that weren't at the Friday workshop. At the Friday workshop, we had a number of different alternatives that were presented to us for handling police space needs. Two of them, I believe, were extensions to the east of the city center. One was at the city service center, Charlie's Domain, up at Bellevue and Santa Fe, roughly. One was purchasing a industrial condominium roughly at Shenango and Santa Fe. And then the fifth option was suggested as purchasing a 67,443, did I get it right, square foot building on Mineral. And in the process of the discussion on Friday, Scott, our estimator,
cost consultant, estimated that the cost for acquiring the mineral and converting it to the same uses that we were considering at the Shenango location would be approximately equal if this offer went through. And I'm going to vote against this amendment because based on that specific narrowing of the criteria, I think the mineral building is at least worth determining if we can get it at that price. I have a great deal of concern if we start going down the path that John seems to be concerned about, and that is if we start talking about moving other departments, moving the entire city center, and going into a comprehensive space needs, that becomes a very different animal than solving simply the police space needs. And if we start going down that path, I have a great deal of concern about that. But looking at this simply as an alternative to the Shenango location at approximately the same cost, at least based on the information that we had on Friday, I think it's worth making an offer. And part of the problem that we have is
we really can't evaluate the viability of the Mineral Street building or any of the alternatives that might happen unless we get an idea of what the price range of that building is. And there's such a wide difference of opinion on what that building value is that I feel like we have to nail that down in order to either eliminate the building or keep that into consideration. So rather than spending money to do a study that's aimed at ascertaining the costs for actions that I'm not sure that I want to do, which is moving other city departments, all I want to do is find out what the price is on the building and whether they're willing to sell it for the price that we think it might be. I'm going to vote no on the amendment. On the motion. John?
Well, I think all that can be found out without making a firm offer, of which we'll probably end up paying penalties if we back out of it. Typically you enter into negotiations with somebody, sign a letter of intent that either party can get out of and take it one step at a time. This is not the time economically or in this financial situation in the city and the country to go out and start buying up property. What are we going to do? Start our own stimulus package of buying up all the empty real estate in the city? Let's sit down and do it properly. Enter into a letter of intent, sit down and talk about it, not just go out and make an offer. So that's my whole concern about this is it's not the way business is done, especially multi-million-dollar deals, especially since we only need 17,000 square feet.
Further discussion? Council ready to vote. The motion is to delay making an offer on the Mineral Street building until we do a study that ascertains the cost to finish the building, the cost to relocate departments, who is going, and the cost of operations of the building.
The vote is 2 in favor with Councilwoman Cole, Councilman Mulvey, Councilman Clark, Councilwoman Brinkman, and Councilman Trujillo voting no. The motion is defeated.
Okay. Anything else, John?
No.
Deb?
I had an issue I wanted to kind of discuss a bit with staff and with council. I've heard a number of concerns, not complaints and not issues, not bad-mouthing, but things coming from staff concerning the complexity of the duplex copying mandate. It appears as though we have thrust upon the staff, and I would like to suggest that we ask staff, and Jim, perhaps you can help me with this, but I think that the rigors of doing that are proving to be taxing and proving to be somewhat in contradiction to productivity. There are times when it is a feasible option, and there are times when it just simply isn't. But it seems as though staff's making valiant efforts to try to do it consistently and regularly, and I think that it's causing some problems, and I don't believe that that was council's intent. So I would like to loosen those rigors and actually ask Jim to go ahead and create whatever rules or systems around the duplexing issue that he feels are appropriate for the workforce.
Okay.
And actually loosen and lighten up what you may think we want you to do. That didn't make sense.
Is that a motion?
Well,
Did
you want to speak to it?
It's a motion if if we need it to be.
Okay, it's been moved to direct the staff to encourage duplexing rather than
mandate.
Yeah, and
Rather than
apparently some comments have been made to Councilwoman Brinkman that haven't been made to me. My understanding from council was to make our best effort. And so if it's perhaps putting some, I know sometimes we've had to sort of go back and rethink some things, but Kelly, are there specific issues that you wanted to comment on?
Well, I'm chairing the Sustainability Committee, and we're working on the Environmental Action Plan. And what we are proposing to put in the plan, which of course you would adopt, but it would say, where possible and practical, duplex. But then one day, somebody put these orange signs with black lettering that are kind of threatening, and they're all over the building. I don't know where they came from, but I haven't heard anybody complain about it. I think people just do it when they can, and if there's something that can't be duplex, then they don't worry about it. So that's kind of how I think we've been proceeding.
You have a comment? And you know, flaky me, I haven't seen the threatening orange signs.
You don't make copies.
Or print anything.
Sign.
I'm going to have to use the document camera. So.
The signs, Mayor and Council, are not threatening. All they are there for is to remind people to duplex. That's all. That's all they were there for. They're not there to threaten anybody or anything like that. I didn't put the signs up, but the copy center put them up. But I thought they were a great reminder for people, and they are put up over all of the copiers in the city to duplex your copies. And we in the copy center are trying to follow the sustainability committee's recommendations to save paper. And there have been some issues with copying in the packets. And we're working on those issues, but we still are trying to duplex as often as possible. But there's no threat involved.
Let me be the first to admit that when I've accidentally not duplexed, I have thrown the documents in the recycle and done it correctly, because I don't want to be accused of not duplexing.
Please just help me in our recycling goals. I think practical and practical and make our best effort. I think staff's very comfortable with that, so appreciate it.
Is that all right? Okay. Anything else? Jose?
I think we're talking about some big dollars here, and I don't think the folks that are out in TV land probably understand what we're talking about. The fact that we are going to be getting this money that's coming from the water fund. It's not going to be anything that's going to be taxed. We've also got several other things that we're taking care of with that water fund, so I think we got to get some more information out there to our citizens as to exactly where this would be coming from.
Okay. Since Jose brought that up, I believe we're doing a report on the workshop. Do you have any idea, a rough time frame? A couple weeks?
Probably end of next week we could get it to you.
Okay. So we should probably have a report that's ready to go to the public by the end of February, maybe first part of March, because once it comes to us, we have to mess with it and then send it back and then resolve that. Second issue is southbound Prince, almost at the top of Jackass Hill. In the $1 Million House, there was a cut across Prince to put in the sewer line. The repavement on that is temporary. Good, that's what I wanted to hear. And will be fixed to be better shortly.
Hot asphalt is available.
When hot asphalt is available. Okay, good. Second thing is Mr. Rinke came down about the parking lot, asking for a letter of intent. If there's no objections for council, why don't we just renew the lease, bring up a new version of the lease?
I had spoken with Dennis Swain about that, and I think he's talked to Greg, so I think it's in the works.
Okay.
I actually have it in my office, so
okay.
I'm doing a couple modifications, but it could be ready for your next meeting.
So it sounds like it was already in the process.
Sounds great. All righty. Then tomorrow morning, there's a Metro Mayor's Caucus meeting. One of the big items that they've been dealing with is the FASTER bill, which is a omnibus transportation bill that includes a lot of provisions, and I'm probably going to mess some of this up, but there's two different raises for vehicle registration fees. The total amount averages about $40 a year per vehicle. Part of that raise goes into a bridge safety enterprise designed for repairing and upgrading dangerous bridges. The other part goes into a high-performance transportation fund, which part of that will also go into the highway user tax, which would then be apportioned the same way that's being apportioned. There's a $2 a day rental fee proposed increase on rental cars. There is a vehicle miles travel pilot project, which is a project, you've probably seen it in the newspaper, that's in the bill, that's proposing to have a pilot project to study coming up with a tax or probably a fee to charge people based on the miles traveled. In the newspaper that described the program in Oregon, they would put global GPS sensor, global positioning system sensors on each car that would record how many miles you've traveled. When you went to a gas pump to fill up, it would then transmit that information to the gas pump, and the gas pump would change the price that it charged you for gas to include the tax for the number of miles that you traveled. At least that's what the system is in Oregon. What is in the bill is basically just for a pilot project. But then the last part that's in the bill is a new tolling enterprise designed to replace the existing tolling authority that exists in Colorado law. This new enterprise would be created and with the authority to go out and condemn and take into the enterprise already existing non-toll lanes and roadways in order to establish tolls on what's currently already existing but non-tolled roadways. The Metro mayors have concerns about this enterprise coming in and tolling, for instance, Colfax, or in our case, Broadway, or roads like that without the approval of the local governments, and so they've been working on language to try and insert language in there to try and get the approval of the local authorities. Then there was discussion about who would make up the board. What assurances could they have that this tolling would not, that the dollars would not leave the metro area, because it's been stated that the metro area is the only place that they would implement the tolling. There's basically not enough traffic outside the metro area, with the possible exception of Colorado Springs, to implement this idea, and so there was concern that this would basically be a way of siphoning money off of the metro area. My personal opinion is that the concept of introducing tolling on already existing, already built, non-tolled roads is an unacceptable idea, especially given what's happened with the tolling concept of C470. So tomorrow this issue will come up on a position that the Metro Mayor should take. Council, what position do you want me to take on any of these issues?
Doug, just a quick, what was the second item you mentioned after the bridges, the funds going to bridges?
Yeah, there's two levels of fee increases for vehicle registration. The combined of both of those together is approximately $40, and the fee increases are based on the weight ranges for the vehicles, and the most common weight range is 2,000 to 5,000 pound vehicles, and I believe the average increase is $43 or something like that for both of those put together. Part of that would go to a bridge safety fund, and part of that would it appears basically follow normal transportation dollars. So it would result in an increase in the highway user tax, which is also, as you know, a portion between the state and the counties and local municipalities, and we get about $1 million a year, I believe, from the highway user tax. Jim?
Doug, I was going to talk about the same thing when we got the Dr. Cog report, because we're having a special meeting tomorrow evening to discuss two things, one of them being the FASTER bill before the legislature. And I believe that we are following primarily the recommendations that came out of the Metro Mayor's Caucus on the special study committee that you guys set up and made a lot of recommendations, and I think that's what we're doing. I will tell you that I have already spoken opposed to tolling of free existing lanes at Dr. Cog. I didn't ask you guys, I just went ahead and did it because that was the position I had on C-470, and I didn't have a lot of objection to my opposing it then, and so I assumed I didn't at this time. So that's the one part of the bill that still bothers me greatly, is their ability to toll the free existing lanes now, and I'd like to see us not being supportive of that.
Well, you know, my personal feeling is tolls and the vehicle miles travel is basically a very complicated attempt to get around a rather simple problem. And the simple problem is we need more revenue, and if we need more revenue, the simple solution to me is raise the gasoline tax. The objections that I've heard at Metro Mayors is well, if you raise the gasoline tax, then when people get more fuel-efficient cars, then it will bring in less revenue. However, if they're going to raise the gasoline tax, it's pretty easy to specify some escalation clauses in that gas tax that would escalate it according to inflation and or according to the total number of revenue put in. And there are those escalation clauses already existing in the FASTER bill for the vehicle registration fees. Those have an escalation that are escalated each year according to the Consumer Price Index in the Denver metro area. I think everybody recognizes that there is not enough money for transportation. Part of that has probably happened because of the shifting of costs from the general fund, from transportation to education, because of the suit that happened, 20 years ago about education being not equally funded between poor areas and rich areas based on the ability to collect property tax. And so part of the solution was to start funding it out of the general fund to try and equalize education dollars. But the net result of that is that left less money in the general fund for other purposes, including transportation. And I'm not objecting to the state funding education out of the general fund, because I think it's important to equalize educational opportunities across the state, regardless of the wealth of the community. But I can't support unless you tell me. Otherwise, I can't support the concept of creating a tolling enterprise to toll roads that have already been built and to give that enterprise authority to condemn those roads. I have concern about the enterprise creating tolls in the metro area and the money going out. I think the effort to try and comprise a board based on the right membership to make sure that that doesn't happen ends up being so complex, and the whole vehicle mile travel project ends up being so complex that it's, to me it's a lot easier to just attack it through the gasoline tax.
Do we need to vote?
Pardon?
Do we need to vote tonight to tell you what to do?
Could we just informally raise our hand, or we need formal action?
Well, I'll put it this way. Is there anyone that doesn't want me to oppose the tolling lane concept?
Are you going to support the rest of it and just oppose that portion, or?
Well, the portion that I find most objectionable is the tolling. I don't particularly like the vehicle miles traveled. I personally think that raising the vehicle registration fees and the amount that's proposed with the $2 tax for car rentals is probably a pretty reasonable alternative for funding transportation. I don't like the idea of creating even more enterprises and spreading transportation functions amongst more entities. I mean, it's complex enough with DRCOG allocating the the ICE-T and the transportation dollars through the TIP process, and then you have CDOT, you have RTD dollars, and we have a fast tax problem, and then to create more enterprises that have specific revenue authority and then building different transportation systems, to me, is just complicating an issue even more than it is, and it's pretty complex right now. But the part that I find most objectionable is the tolling part.
And Doug, frankly, I think that the tolling might gain enough support both at Metro Mayors and also at DRCOG to oppose that. The other issues you bring up, I'm not sure there's going to be enough support, and you're batting your head up against a brick wall.
Well, I've been batting my head against the brick wall. They told me a couple of meetings ago I was the only one in the room that felt that way. So, I don't know how much other support there's going to be for the mayors to do this. And part of the issue with the Metro mayors is they do everything by consensus. So if there's one mayor that objects to this, it stops the process. And we had this discussion last meeting. I voiced my objection to the tolling, but I didn't formalize it so that the Metro mayors could have a discussion with the legislature and committee about what their issues are, because they were getting into specific details, proposing alternate language for the composition of the board and things like that. And I thought it was important for them to address their issues that way. But
I have a concern with the miles traveled piece. I think given all the tourism and all the commerce that travels north and south and east and west and whatever in the state, crossing the state, passing through, that places unfair burden on the citizens of the state. So that gas tax is a fair way to get whoever the devil's driving, wherever they're driving. So I'm opposed to the experiment.
And in danger of putting my head in the noose, I have to say that from what I've read about the alternate proposal, and all I know is what I've read in the newspaper, the alternate proposal or unalternate proposal that's been floated is selling the equity in state buildings and using that money to fund transportation, which to me just seems ludicrous. I mean, even if you're successful doing that this year, then what are you going to sell next year? I mean, eventually you run out of assets to sell, and the citizens have financed those assets already. That's basically just a failure to address what the real issues are. So I don't see that as a viable alternative.
I agree.
Okay, lack of strong direction, I will oppose at least the tolling portion.
Well, I hope you would oppose what you just said, too.
Yeah. Jim, DRCOG.
Well, I've already said that we have a special meeting tomorrow evening with two items. The first one is the faster bill. The first one is going to be discussion of the federal stimulus package that's coming in. Indications are that CDOT is getting part of the money, and another part of the money is coming to the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which DRCOG is. So we're having discussions tomorrow night about how we can streamline our processes, because it's a cumbersome process to go through to get highway funding approved. And so we're going to be discussing how we can streamline that to meet the 75-day deadline once the bill is signed, and you got 75 days to get projects under contract. So we'll have some interesting discussions tomorrow evening. And last week we met on a special energy bill, a special energy work session, and just talk about energy conservation in the state, and it was just a workshop and general information.
Okay, that brings us to item 13F, which is, John, would you make a motion for the executive session, please?
Yes, I move that council go into executive session under Colorado Revised Statute 246402, Paren 4, Paren A, to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real, personal, or other property.
Been seconded by Tom. The motion is to go into executive session to discuss the lease, acquisition, or purchase of property. Takes 5 votes. Any discussion?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
We will come back, but we will take no action after the executive session. So, Weldon, go. Thank you. Let's meet at 5 till.